Welcome back to the BC City Connection. Richard Pyatt here. This is the official podcast and program from the city of Battle Creek City Hall, or in this case, police headquarters. Today, we're going to talk about some common sense crime prevention tips. In fact, at the time we're talking about this, it's springtime, it's warmer, people are starting to get out more, and that means perhaps our risks are a little higher or a little different. Anyway, as we focus on safety and crime prevention, Lieutenant Ryan Strunk is here, along with Sergeant Chris Robbitt, Battle Creek Police Department. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when we talk about common sense, I think, Lieutenant, we're really saying we know these things, a lot of us, but we are going about our day and we're not really thinking about them much, are we?
Correct. Specifically, kind of diving into driving is a great example of that. You have a lot more pedestrians walking down the street this time of year. People are coming out and about more frequently. Motorcycles are on the roadway. So it just creates a lot more moving pieces and parts literally on the road where we need to be a little bit more tuned in on the roadway and not being distracted, whether it be by cell phones or other things going on inside the vehicle.
Oh, boy. Well, we could do a whole show on that, couldn't we?
I'm certain of that.
Yeah, distracted driving, man. All right. So, Sergeant, when we're out and about, what is maybe one of the first things you think about that's good advice?
As far as driving, like the lieutenant said, keeping that cell phone out of your hands, right? Take that cell phone, mount it in the car so you don't even have to fiddle with it, don't mess with it. Focus on what you're doing at the time, because there is just so much going on at this time of year. There are so many people out and about. There's motorcycles, there's kids getting out playing who have been cooped up for all the cold months that Michigan has. So nobody wants to have that, unbelievable accident where, oh my goodness, something terrible just occurred because I wasn't paying attention. There's not one person that wants that to happen. So really just making that effort to really focus on the task at hand, which is safely driving along the streets.
By the way, Lieutenant, holding the phone in your car while you're driving is illegal, and you can get nicked pretty good for that.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, the fines range from anywhere from $100 to $250. I believe that the $250 is more of subsequent violations. And that is across the board. You could just be holding it, and that technically qualifies as a violation. So even if it's mounted and you're manipulating with more than a single touch, that technically qualifies as well. So it's just about avoiding those distractions in general.
How about that? More than a single touch, even if it's not in your hands and you're just reaching for it, that is enough of a distraction to be considered a distraction.
Correct. And that's a difficult thing for people to grasp at times. But, when you start thinking about taking our eyes off of the roadway and manipulating something other than the wheel or the blinker or whatnot in the vehicle, we're really starting to divert our attention from what the task at hand is.
And that can't be described any better than that, I suppose. What else, Sergeant, when we're out and about, some of these things that maybe don't come to the front of our minds, but they are just as important as many other things, like locking your car.
Yeah, that is in all my years of doing this, that is a discussion I've had numerous times. Well, why would I lock my car? They're just going to break my window, and that's the stats don't show us that. That is a false argument. Locking your car, keeping valuables out of plain sight while locking your car, that's a huge one. Now, if somebody walks past and sees, oh, there's a brand new Apple laptop sitting in the back seat, I might take the chance of breaking this window and getting that out. But if you put those two together, locking your car and taking valuables out of plain sight, then there's no incentive to take that risk. And that's really what criminals are looking for. They're looking for an incentive, and does that incentive outweigh the potential for getting caught?
Man, I'm lingering on what you just said, that locking the door, why bother? They're just going to break the window. I would say you might as well put a neon sign on top of the car. It says door unlocked.
Right, right.
Why make it easier, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
in security and crime prevention, we want to layer our security, and the more layers, the better. So a locked door, valuables out of the car, a spotlight or a motion light in your driveway. These are all different layers that people can implement to help protect their property.
and by the way, I see it on neighborhood ring accounts and things where people are sharing video. Folks in the middle of the night are going around trying car door handles and they're looking for the easy route. They're not breaking windows. They're looking for an unlocked car they can rummage through. True?
Correct.
Why make it easy for them? All right. Lieutenant, let's talk about safety tips, prevention tips when on the road. We talked about trying to keep the distractions at a minimum. Is there anything else that you talk about under that umbrella?
Well, so it's kind of talking about us as pedestrians ourselves and being out in public. I think all of us have watched the public at large walk around attached to their phones, right? Just glued to it, face down, not paying attention to what's going on around us. And there's multiple issues with that. Number one, if we're near a roadway and we end up wandering out into the road, we have the potential to get struck by a vehicle. But number two, especially when we start getting on more remote walking paths and things like that, we have no idea what's going on around us. If there's people approaching or animals, whether it be somebody's dog got loose, not necessarily somebody trying to grab you from the bushes, but still being vigilant of that idea or that potential as well. So really just being aware of our surroundings is a key piece. And that's both inside the vehicle and outside. And staying focused on what we're trying to do. I think about going out late at night and, whether it be a walk for health or just, you have to get from point A to point B to work or whatever the case may be. If you can travel in numbers, it's always better. But just avoiding those additional distractions. Like I say, it sounds silly to say that, don't get distracted when you're driving and when you're walking, but that's the reality of what we're looking at. And just, you don't know what's going on around you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just having this conversation with a friend who had been in California, and she said in California they have it printed on the sidewalk when you come to a curb stop at a roadway, look up. Evidently, we have to be told that now, but yeah, makes sense. By the way, you talked about knowing your surroundings. This is something I've seen discussed before, that even when you walk into a public place, a restaurant, a store, to take a look around and understand where the exits are and things of that nature. Is this something you recommend?
Absolutely. I mean, not to a point of paranoia, right? But being aware of where they're at. You never know when a situation is going to develop. I mean, it could be a natural disaster of some sort, right? Could be a fire, but or could be some sort of an assaultive attack that we have to be concerned with, and figuring out the quickest way to get out of that situation. At least making yourself aware. I think about that at movie theaters specifically. The exits are at the front, sometimes they're at the back, depending. I'm sure you've heard the spiel on the airplane that the emergency exit might be behind you, so just be aware of where it's at. But how are we making ourselves safer and our families safer? And I think just being aware is a great step in the right direction.
All right. So think about that. Be mindful, look around, see what you see when you take a minute to become more familiar with the places that you're frequenting. Well, Sergeant, we could spend a whole show talking about financial and cyber safety, but this is part of our discussion today of just general crime prevention tips. What falls under that heading?
Like you said, it's an immense topic. There are so many different ways that fraudsters can get to us in the current day and age, right? We have computers, we have cell phones, we have all the different social media platforms that people tie into. We have our email, we have our phone numbers, and they utilize all of them. You have to be aware in using all of the electronics that are available to us anymore, and implement, really, it's the same rules. Don't click on suspicious links, especially on social media or in an email that doesn't look legitimate or doesn't look familiar to you. Same thing with text messages now. You get text messages, your car went through a toll, and you owe this much money to whatever Department of Transit.
Right.
And then you're thinking back and you're like, I didn't travel anywhere. This doesn't seem right. So, but it's got that link on there and it wants you to click on it and take care of it. These are different, just another method for fraudsters to get you to click in, and whether it's through, viral or malware or whatever software that they want to get into your phone. We live in our phones. We have banking information. We have all these different personal facts about us in our phones. And you just really need to use that caution to keep yourself at bay from those fraudsters.
Yeah, that text about fines for road tolls, that one seems to have been pretty widespread and is a great example of an attempted scam, but it got a fair amount of press, so hopefully more people didn't click on it. But I would imagine, Lieutenant, that these things look more legit than they used to, don't they?
Absolutely. You talk about the toll ones, because I got a text a couple of weeks ago. I was traveling through Illinois. It was an Illinois toll road that they said I had went through, so they at
Uh,
least knew. I say knew where I was. Either they got lucky or did know. But I also counter with, we talk about social media surfing, and people find some T-shirt or hat or purse or whatever they want to buy on them. They click the link to go to the site. Well, when it's on that social media site, we don't necessarily know where it's coming from. So oftentimes people end up spending money on something that they never receive. And while they may only be out $20 or $30, somebody somewhere has your personal information, to potentially include banking information. And so, not that you're giving a green light to access your accounts, but they certainly have that information. You can do a lot of things with it.
yeah, you talk about social media ads, those look pretty legit too. I can even say that happened to me once. Looked like a legitimate ad from a legitimate store, and I discovered later it was not, when what I bought did not show up. So it can even happen to some of us who think, we might recognize the difference between that which is legit and that which is not. And sometimes we get fooled too. So it really is difficult, isn't it? What do you recommend with that? I mean, you see something, let's say, in a social media ad, and oh, I want to order that, but maybe you shouldn't click on it. Do you have some advice there?
I'll tell you from my perspective, I'll oftentimes see, some cool shirt or some item of some nature that I really like and think it's a neat thing to get. Instead of clicking on the link, if it's a reputable site, say Under Armour, Nike, whatever the case may be, go to their actual page and search it that way, as opposed to just clicking a link that takes you to something. Take that extra step away from social media. Professionals or professional criminals are very good at what they do. That's how they make a living. And so they're always scheming and scamming us in some way. And so they're making it look as realistic as possible. I mean, you may go like the toll site, for example. I didn't click the link, so I don't know what it looked like, but I imagine it looks legitimate. And so you think, I'll pay my, even if it's $5, right? If it works 1,000 times, that's a lot of money over the course of time. So, working through that and just doing a little bit of homework. If somebody were to call and say, you owe us money, or your kid's in jail, or whatever the case may be, if it was legitimate, they would 100% recommend you, if that even happened that way, which it's not going to happen that way. But if it were, they would encourage you to call whatever the local police agency is. Hey, look it up on Google. If I give it to you, you're not going to believe me. So I'd encourage that if that were to be the case. If somebody says they're in Calhoun County Jail, find the number for the Calhoun County Jail and call there first before you take that next step. And one of the other interesting ones that we see a lot of, or hear a lot about, is the gift cards. Go get some gift cards and that's how you're going to pay us. I've never in my life at this point heard or ever seen where you ever pay a reputable company in gift cards. So that should be a real red flag that really should discourage people from engaging even further in that discussion. I just heard a phone call from a colleague of mine that was being told that there was gonna be a warrant for his arrest if he didn't go pay a fine immediately. So I happened to be right next to him when he was on the phone with this guy, and he was telling the police were coming. And I happened to be, again, we were in the city of Battle Creek. I was working at the time, and the guy did not want to talk to me when I took the phone. So,
Oh my goodness. That is incredible. And what timing?
yeah, just convenient.
So that phone call thing, by the way, must be pretty successful because it apparently is still going on. And sometimes, someone answers the phone and the other voice says, "Grandma," and it sounds like your grandchild, but it's not. How do you handle that?
That's a difficult one, only because it's hard to understand what people are hearing and seeing on their end of it. When I don't recognize a number, I I don't typically answer to begin with, right?
Yeah.
That's my first step. If I don't know who it is, if it's that important, they'll leave me a voicemail or they'll send me a text. That's how I view it. Not to say that anybody couldn't be tricked from time to time. I do caution giving out names over the phone. Oh, hey, is that Johnny? They're going to say, "Yep, it's Johnny." You know what I mean? They're going to
Mm.
play off of that as well. I mean, con artists are professionals at what they do. So the old well, circus trick or whatever, where they're guessing all kinds of information. Well, they're just picking up information from you because you're giving it to them, whether it be consciously or subconsciously. So it's an interesting piece to that you just got to be aware of who you're talking to. And if you don't know, don't answer, don't engage in that conversation. I think one of the biggest tactics is them being very aggressive on the phone and not even giving people an opportunity to talk.
Yeah, it puts you back on your heels, and then you're caught responding when it's best just not to.
Yeah, when you say my grandson's in jail, you immediately panic. And I've even had people say that before, like, wait a minute, I don't have a grandson, but they like the way they said it kind of caught them off guard.
Hmm.
And it was just a unique perspective to hear that from some folks.
All
That
right.
pressure they put on people, oftentimes it comes with a time frame, right? I need you to pay this now, so keep me on the phone while you go to the store and buy these gift cards.
All right.
So that's another thing. They make you think that you're on the clock and need to get it done as soon as possible.
Sure. Create urgency and try to get it done before someone smartens up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say too, when it comes to people being victimized by these frauds, oftentimes what we see is a reluctance to come forward and report it out of embarrassment.
Sure.
And all I can say to that is there are so many people that are falling victim to these frauds that you shouldn't be embarrassed. It happens to, like you had mentioned, people of all ages, of all levels of professionalism, everything. And so really we need to have that information of what frauds are going on in our area. So please make sure that those get reported.
That's a good point that you've touched on. Report it. An online type of fraud, even a small one, should we report that? I mean, the sense is that's going to be difficult to track down. True?
It can be. It can be very difficult to track down. Oftentimes the report might just be an informational, hey, this person got contacted by this email address or this phone number or through this social media site, whatever it might be. But at least now we have that documented. And that's information that can be shared once we start seeing offenses that have the same similarities.
Yeah.
And we can coordinate with other agencies and see, is this a national trend? Is it a regional trend? Or is it specific to Battle Creek? So,
All right, there you go. So even if it was small, reporting it can be helpful in the long run to help try and stop these things from happening. Let's talk about home safety, Lieutenant. When we're talking about being at home, what kind of safety tips do you have for us?
Be aware of locking your doors and windows. Sergeant Rabbit had already kind of mentioned floodlights or motion lights on the house. That's always a good addition. Another thing too that a lot of people are going to is camera systems on the house, whether it be a Ring doorbell camera or a full system that covers all angles of the home to include the interior. Now, those are all personal preferences and can be price prohibitive. It just depends on what you're looking for and trying to do. I think about with the house safety and security is it's about protecting yourself physically, but also your assets. Another helpful thing, and again, we kind of go into these sounding somewhat silly from time to time, but keeping those hedges and brushes trimmed around the house. If you've got overgrown bushes and whatnot, people can tuck in behind them as they're jimmying a window open or doing whatever they're trying to do. So if somebody driving by the roadway were able to see them, maybe they could call that in. But if they can't see what's going on behind a brush or a shrub or whatnot, it's difficult for that to happen. And adding those lighting around it just deters folks. You know, we go back to parking our cars in lit areas. Now, that's not always doable, depending on where we're at, but can I enhance the lights around my own home? And just deter people from being there. No criminal wants to have attention drawn to them. Nobody wants to be in the spotlight, literally, when it comes to those lights. So being able to kind of add that layer, we talked about the layers earlier, and adding that layer to your home security and just being aware. Adding to that, I think about people going on vacation. And I think about it because I know my grandma used to do it, putting a timer on and having a timer on lights in the home. And we don't think about things like that, but when we're gone, if there's no lights on, people start to notice that. Just heard this the other day, guys walking through neighborhoods and watching for papers to start piling up and seeing newspapers piling up on the steps and things like that. And hey, nobody must be living there or, they must be out of town. But even a step further on social media, people posting all of their vacation photos. Like maybe just wait until you return or give it a couple of days, because if people are following us on social media, which that's the point to an extent, they see that we're out of town. They know that the house is not occupied, probably. I mean, some people are able to have people stay and house sit and maybe watch the dogs or whatever, but all things being equal, if you're advertising you're out of town, that just tells people nobody's home.
Right, and you could be friends with someone, on social media who sees you're away and then begins to have an idea that maybe there's an opportunity there.
Absolutely. I mean, we call a lot of people our friends, and they do a lot of things for us and with us, but they also maybe know what's in our house, and if they want that, doesn't mean they're going to be that friendly.
Is it helpful to tell a neighbor you're going to be gone?
Depends on your neighbors is the short answer, but absolutely. To let people know, hey, I'm not going to be around for a couple of days. Frankly, depending on how many vehicles a person has, I've heard people asking the neighbors, hey, do you mind parking one of your extra cars in my driveway? I'm going to be out of town for a couple of days, just to give that impression that somebody is home. Again, going back to deterrence, what's the best way to avoid becoming a victim? It's avoiding the situation to begin with. And as long as we're not advertising that nobody's home, that's a helpful step.
I guess I should have said a trusted neighbor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Trusted neighbors are fine.
Well, this has been educational and certainly, at the very least, a reminder to folks about some things maybe you haven't thought about as it relates to crime prevention. But others of these things perhaps were informative. So make sure that you think about that clearly. And also, the latest Scene magazine in May of 25 will have a printed version of some of what we talked about. So you can pick that up and review it again for the appropriate information. Well, this is good to hear and good reminders, if nothing else. Lieutenant Ryan Strunk and Sergeant Chris Rabbit, Battle Creek Police Department. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.